Tesla have been dominating the premium EV space for years now, but the question is, what are the established car makers planning to do about it? Logic says that they'll all begin to release premium EVs that should soon have Tesla very worried. Premium EVs like this, the Mercedes EQC. This is what happens when a proper car maker makes a proper effort at building a proper electric car. Should Elon be worried? For this £65,000 EV, they're using a tried and trusted formula. Rather than splashing out on an all-new platform and building an electric car from scratch, they've taken the Mercedes GLC as a base, stripped out the engine, and installed a pair of electric motors attached to an 85 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery pack. It's a simple formula, proven tech in a proven platform from a proven and very premium car maker. And it should go down quite well because it's a good-looking thing, the EQC. Size-wise, it fits somewhere between a Model 3 and the Model X. I guess it'll go head-to-head with the Model Y when that's released. But what you need to know is that it's a family car aimed at people who want a premium badge. The face takes a bit of getting used to. I know that's a bit rich coming from me, but I do like these LED light bars. There's one at the front and another at the back. And then round the side, I think it looks fantastic because these wheels are absolutely epic. I wouldn't mind putting those on a non-electric vehicle. Along the side, you've also got a handy little step. That's really useful for the vertically challenged or for children to help them get in and out more conveniently. And speaking of children getting in, the rear doors open quite wide, so it's easier to shove those annoying children inside. And once you're in, what you'll find is there's actually a really good amount of legroom, decent amount of headroom. I do wish the sunroof was a bit bigger. Teslas have a really, really big sunroof, but this thing is a bit claustrophobic in here. But on the whole, it's not too bad. Take a look at the boot quickly. This is an SUV, so you want a big boot, and Mercedes have delivered. This is a 500-litre boot. The Jaguar I-Pace is a little bit bigger, but on the whole, you can fit a lot of stuff in there, and you can fold the seats down really easily at the touch of a button. It's quite practical, but I can't help but think Mercedes have missed a trick here. Car makers who build their cars as EVs from the ground up can take advantage of the fact they don't need to install an engine and can use that space more wisely. If I pop the bonnet on the EQC and remove this plastic shroud, there's no engine, but nor is there any usable storage space as you find in some dedicated EVs. Inside, I think Mercedes has a bit of an advantage over some of their rivals where interior quality is concerned. It's not quite S-Class levels, don't get me wrong, but I do appreciate the choice and arrangement of the materials inside the cabin. I really like the variety of materials they've applied to places like the door, which has this super fabric / suede / leathery type texture on the top, contrasting stitching, this patterned plastic below it, and then this almost like guitar string material which runs the full width of the cabin. Plus you've got chrome highlights, ambient lighting. The center console is typical Mercedes, gloss black. It will attract fingerprints like you wouldn't believe, with a bunch of shortcut buttons for your heating, ventilation, and climate, plus this mouse trackpad style controller on the center, which controls your multimedia system. I love the way it vibrates when you swipe your finger to confirm that you've selected something. Haptic feedback, gotta have it in a modern car. Now, even though this is based on the GLC, it doesn't have the same dashboard as the GLC. The GLC had circular vents up here above the center console, but Mercedes have redesigned this. They've now got this kind of copper finish, which I think is very brave. Not everyone's going to appreciate that, but I love the fact that they've chosen to go down that direction because it shows they want people to feel like they've got a unique product and one that isn't basically a copy of something else. At the top of the dashboard, you get the awesome MBUX, Mercedes-Benz User Experience Infotainment System. Basically a pair of screens that give you a lot of information about the car. The screen directly in front of you shows you your driving information like your speed, remaining range, and how much power you're asking for from the electric motors, while the screen on the left shows you your main menu and things like your sat-nav. The sat-nav is definitely worth talking about because it uses augmented reality. There's a camera pointed at the road ahead and it plays a live feed directly on the screen on the center console. On top of that, it overlays virtual graphics to show you the names of roads and also arrows to show you what direction you should be turning in. In terms of the way the EQC drives, well, it's a Mercedes, and it's electric, so it's very quiet. Mercedes have even applied extra sound deadening material to try to reduce what little sound comes from the electric motors. The result is that it's one of the most refined EVs on the market. It's also easy to drive. The steering is light, the controls are simple, the seats are comfortable, and the ride is smooth, soaking up the majority of bumps with ease. Where it suffers slightly is it does crash over potholes, a consequence of the car's massive 2,500 kilogram weight. The GLC, for reference, is around 700 kilograms lighter. That extra weight doesn't negatively affect the performance. This is a very fast car. It uses a pair of electric motors, one on the front and one at the back. It's the one on the front that does most of the donkey work most of the time, but when you accelerate hard or you chuck it into sport mode and tell it that you really want to go fast, then the motor on the back wakes up and joins the party. Together, they make 300 kilowatts of power, or 400 horsepower in old money, and that's enough to accelerate this from a standstill to 62 miles an hour in 5 seconds. It's really quick, really fun, and it will be enough to scare off most sports cars off the line. It's a very entertaining car in a straight line. The key word there is straight line. When it comes to corners, the EQC is pretty abysmal. It handles a bit like a drunk hippo. It's probably the best way I can describe it. If you arrive at a corner at a speed approaching anything that could be considered remotely enthusiastic, then what you'll encounter is a lot of understeer and ultimately quite a lot of terror. Most electric cars have their batteries positioned quite low down in the chassis to lower the center of gravity, but somehow, some way, the EQC seems to feel like its center of gravity is still quite high, and I get the feeling when I go around bends that the car's rolling around. I really hope that the camera is able to pick up that movement of the body as we go through corners, because it's not enjoyable. If you're the kind of person that drives for pleasure because you enjoy the sensation of taking control of a car, the EQC is not for you. Now, in a car that's this fast in a straight line, yet this inept around corners, brakes are going to be essential, right? And the brakes in the EQC are pretty poor as well. Not because they don't stop the car effectively, they do eventually, but they really do have to work against this car's mass. Plus, the feeling of the brake pedal is inconsistent and at times a bit unnerving. The problem is the first inch of travel in the brake pedal causes the regen system to kick in. So you don't get much stopping power. Instead, you get the electric motor turning the kinetic energy from the wheels into electricity and feeding that back into the batteries. So if you really want to slow the car down, you've got to push past that point. And at that point, the feel of the brakes changes significantly. So it's really difficult to actually get your head around the feel of the brake pedal. And I'll mention the weight thing again, because it really does come into sharp focus when you're trying to slow this car down significantly. I'll sum it up by saying it doesn't matter how much brake force you think you're applying, you usually need to apply a bit more. Weirdly, what this 400 horsepower Mercedes is really good at is driving slowly, and luckily the company have thrown in some extra features to help facilitate that, one of which is a driving mode called maximum range. What this does is it essentially allows you to flop your foot down on the accelerator as hard as you like without the car shooting off into the distance. Instead, the car works out what the speed limit is around you and how much it wants to preserve your battery power, and it applies that much acceleration. If you happen to be in a 30-mile-an-hour zone and apply a load of throttle to it, it won't go any faster than 30. If that road suddenly changes to a 60, it will gradually speed up to 60, and if the road then slows down again, it will slow you down gradually again to abide by the speed limit and to help preserve as much range as is possible. So the EQC is a car that's most rewarding when being driven sensibly. The 85 kilowatt-hour battery pack has a usable capacity of 80 kilowatt-hours, which is enough to provide 259 miles of urban driving. Jaguar, for reference, quotes 292 miles for the similarly priced I-Pace. Tesla's more expensive Model X has an official range of 314 miles. So the Merc isn't the benchmark when it comes to range, but it does have a lot of flexibility when it comes to recharging. You have a couple of options for charging your EQC. The car comes as standard with an onboard liquid-cooled 7 kilowatt charger, which lets you top up at home overnight, and that'll take around 7 hours to give you a full battery. But if you need to go further afield, then it is of course compatible with a rapid charger like this. It can charge at a maximum rate of 110 kilowatts, which will allow you to recharge from 10% to 80% in around 70 minutes. Most electric cars allow you to charge from a variety of charge points run by a variety of companies. This flexibility is useful, of course, but it does mean that you, as an owner, might have to maintain several contracts with several monthly payments. Luckily, the EQC introduces Mercedes Charge, a service that lets you maintain one contract and one monthly fee while giving you access to multiple chargers. It's not quite as simple and seamless as Tesla's supercharger network, but it comes a close second. And that just about sums up the EQC. It's good in many areas, but there's definitely room for improvement in a variety of others. I'm a bit surprised by the EQC, to be honest. On paper, Mercedes should walk this. They've got the resources, the talent, the experience to really redefine what an electric car should be. They invented the motor car, for goodness sake. But it feels like a bit of a missed opportunity. It has a lot going for it in terms of design, practicality, efficiency. But for me, it's a case of good effort, but is it good enough?